Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Welcome to Thursday. And good morning. Good morning. And I'm excited. I'm going to be in New York this Saturday. I'm going to see my buddy Kaustubha.
That's right.
Mara's not coming. She's chefing something back home, whipping up some vegan souffle. And so we're going to miss her. Kaustubha's going to come in. Thanks everybody for signing up. I'm looking forward to seeing all the others out there. It's on the roof, but if it's raining, we're doing it inside and we're not doing an asana practice. Just letting you know that just in. So if it's raining, because the numbers are limited inside. So whatever, just come prepared. Is that okay? And guess what? Dr. Louie's coming. I got a feeling last time we did this, Wisdom of the Sages event, we got to meet all those others floating around out there, and Zoomers met Zoomers in real time. You know what's interesting when you meet someone from Zoom? It's always like, oh, you're taller than I thought. You're shorter than I thought. You talk like that? I didn't know you talk like that. For some reason in my head, I thought you talk like this. The Zoom illusion. Can't figure it out.
That's that bodily consciousness. It's always inaccurate, right?
The senses are always inaccurate. We're trying to find perfect knowledge with imperfect senses. That's the lesson.
Okay.
Here's what else is happening, Kaustubha. We are doing a Wisdom of the Sages weekend. 2 different weekends. The first weekend of June. That's going to be done in Long Beach, California. The first weekend of June. I can't remember the numbers, but you can just look at the calendar. And that's going to be in Long Beach, California. And that is at a yoga studio called Yoga 108, which is a good friend of ours, Madhuri. And
is that like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday?
It's Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We're starting with Friday night kirtan.
June 4th, 5th, and 6th.
June 4th, 5th, and 6th. Yes, it is. And it's right around the corner from our friend Tukaram's vegan restaurant. All prashad, all vegan, all excited. And the following weekend is
11th,
another
12th and 13th.
That is the Wisdom of the Sages retreat in New York. You're all invited. And during that one, we take a field trip on Saturday to 59th Street, where we do the Jagannath Rath Yatra parade.
Yeah,
and we march
45th Street now. They changed it.
Oh, they lowered us. They lowered us down to make our parade shorter.
Knocked it down a bit.
They knocked it down 10 blocks. We're like, okay, you Hare Krishnas, we've had enough of this.
You know, they did that when there was the recession and the economy was all messed up and everything like that. They kind of cut that out, and they never gave it back.
They cut back. They cut back on parades.
Yep.
Okay. Whatever. It's still it's like a bhakti party down Fifth Avenue. It's like quite unbelievable.
And then there's a big party in Washington Square Park.
Then in Washington Square Park, we all hang out, and guess what? Kaustubha manufactured a Wisdom of the Sages table, which will be manned by Mara.
Oh, is that so?
It's news to her, but she's going to be at the Wisdom of the Sages. So it's autographs with Mara, and she'll be handing out cookies.
Yeah.
She'll be handing out prasadam cookies. So we're all excited. Everyone for years is, who is Mara? Is she real? Is she a robot? We never see her. She's secretive. You got to find her. And she's going to be at that table in real life, or we're going to have one of those Ripley's Believe It or Not dummies, or like wax museums of Mara if she can't make it. A wax Mara.
All right, that's a lot of news.
I know what I'm talking about. Those wax museums.
We know what wax museums are.
You know what
So
wax
that's
they never
this
quite
weekend?
look like the person.
And then 2 more weekends not far down the road.
Yeah, it's exciting.
All right.
We are real people. We want to see you in real time. What do you think about that, Kaustubha? Exciting?
Yeah, sounds great. Did you see my little suggestion I just sent you on the chat board privately?
Did you send me a private chat?
I did. Because I think this makes sense, right?
Oh, wait a second. Yeah, I do. Stop talking. You're being annoying again.
That's not what I said.
Oh, that's not nice. No, he didn't write that. He wrote something beautiful. Let's see. Stoked for autograph cookies. Rath
Okay, I'll
Yatra is
just
the
say,
best.
I
Where
think-
I can't see it.
you can't give the show this Saturday because you're doing that program. So what I'm
Yeah.
suggesting is that we do the Q&A on Friday. Let's do the Q&A on Friday, and then we can have a guest on
Yeah.
Sunday, right? Okay. So we have Jai
Let's do-
Jagannath lined up for Sunday. Jai
He's
Jagannath,
lovely.
He's like an amazingly brilliant guy. He's got like a super intelligence and everything, and he's super into Bhagavatam. So I want to get him on the show and just like discuss like his inspiration, his Bhagavatam inspiration versus stuff like that.
He's got a good
cool.
name, too.
Jai Jagannath,
Sure.
yeah.
All
Okay.
right,
and
Jai
then so-
Jagannath. Okay, questions and answers at 5 a.m., though?
Yeah, Q&A at 5 a.m. on Friday, and Jai Jagannath on
All right.
Sunday. Saturday off.
That sounds great.
All right.
Transformation. It's all about transformation here in the Bhagavatam, transforming our lives a little bit at a time.
Right.
Speaking of transformation, my friend,
Yeah.
that's something for you.
Let's hear it.
Shelter lyrics, I felt, that sort of fit in with the theme
okay.
of the class today. When in
What do you
doubt,
got?
with anything wise to say, dig through some shelter lyrics. Okay.
What have you got?
This was one of my favorite songs. It was called Metamorphosis. You ready for this?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, from our mantra record. Born selfish, blind, and ignorant, and my schooling gave me knowledge, but never any wisdom. And in addition, the television programmed my brain through its constant repetition, misdirected, infected with mundane roles and goals and heroes. And although life really has a purpose, I wasted my youth in a social circus. I've been told what is best for me, but I've seen their destiny, our leaders' ignominy, reconfirm my concern to rearrange and change my life. And I'll vow right here and now, no more time wasting, just edification, purification. We can direct our future. And the chorus is, this life has no meaning unless we grow. There's no use for all this screaming unless we grow. That's the first verse. Can I continue?
Please do.
Did you want to comment? Did you want to purport that?
There's so much to comment on. I mean, we could do the whole show on that right there. That was Bhagavatam.
It's chock full of Bhagavatam insight.
Yeah.
You know where I wrote this? I wrote this at Henry's house. I kid you not.
Yeah.
Henry, who's on the show today. The Henry. Henry's got to come to that. Henry's got to be at the Wisdom of the Sages table. People can meet him and pick his
Oh, well,
brain.
he's a
Guy's
Rath
got a
man.
million stories
Yeah,
at
he
Rath
doesn't-
Yatra.
Yeah, he doesn't miss.
He doesn't, but he doesn't. He's hermited. He's hermited himself in his house. He has not left that house since COVID started. I don't think he might even left that chair since COVID started. Every time I see him, he's in that chair. He doesn't move. Okay, verse 2. Ready?
Yeah.
Uh,
A little slower this time. A little slower.
born foolish, dull, and self-absorbed. I think I
That was
still
the
might
first
be.
one, wasn't it? What's the
No,
first-
the first one was born selfish, blind, and ignorant. This is
Okay.
born foolish, dull, and self-absorbed. I'm a little dull.
A little condescending there, Raghu, huh? Your teens when you wrote this, or 20s, whatever.
But I'll dedicate my life to my reformation and education
Oh,
in
you're
a
talking
nation.
about yourself, so that wasn't condescending. This was self.
It wasn't
this was
condescending. It was about
introspective.
myself.
That's right. Okay.
Yeah,
Continue.
was it not? Yeah, Prabhu. It's not like you're born foolish, dull, and self-absorbed. I
thought you were talking to
am.
me.
No, it's about my metamorphosis.
Okay, let's hear it.
I'm still in the cocoon, but I'm trying. Born foolish, dull, and self-absorbed, but I dedicate my life to my reformation and education in a nation that thinks great pleasure is a Disney vacation. Ooh, I never fit into their system. I couldn't understand people wasting their time with so-called love and drugs and occupation while outside the window is a crumbling nation. So I searched for sincerity and lost popularity. Well, what do they want from me? If I lost friends, they were never were my friends at all. To find the real me through introspection and austerity is my life's mission, my ambition. I've got a vision to change my destiny.
Whew.
Thank you. Metamorphosis.
That was really brilliant. It
You
reminds
could
me.
give a whole Bhagavatam class on that song.
You know what it reminds me of? I mean, it reminds me of a lot of was something that we could read today, because Prabhupada in the purport to this verse that we're going to read today, he talks about Prahlad Maharaj. That sounded like Prahlad Maharaj, some of that. It sounded like Bhagavatam to me, really.
Well, you read Bhagavatam enough, your
come out of you.
poems that come out of your body.
That's what's
Right?
going on. Yeah,
It's like the Bhagavatam. That's what happens.
that's what happens. Let's read some Bhagavatam.
We Krishna-ize, Bhagavatam-ize, everything. Talking, anybody ever notice that? You start talking, and the next thing you know, it's like the Bhagavatam's flowing out of your mouth. That's the first thing I knew by hanging out with people practicing bhakti. When I started to talk to regular people, I just started like the Gita. I wasn't even into it, but the Gita started flowing out of my mouth.
The Gita started flowing out of my mouth. That's a song right there.
That's a song right there. You know why? Because this is it's our culture. It's you people. I'm looking at these faces right now. Jeffrey Ackler, Richard O, Sarah Koretsky. You're my people now, and we talk about the Bhagavatam every day. And then on our downtime, the Bhagavatam's coming out of our mouth, and people think, oh, that's sort of wise. It's not our stuff. We're just repeating the Bhagavatam. But you're all our friends. It's a good one. Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future. Show me your friends. I'll show you your future. You like that one?
Sure.
Tattoo
Makes
that.
sense. Okay.
Yeah. So this is what happens when we hang out with these people who are always hearing and chanting the Bhagavatam. You're creating your destiny, man. This is you. This is your future. Bhagavatam, metamorphosis, butterflies. Let's go. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tadojayam madiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes of the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart will become eradicated, and loving service to the transcendent Lord, whose praise with transcendental songs will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om jnana tamarandasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurunmilitam yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. I was born foolish, dull, and self-absorbed, but my spiritual master has opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my obeisances to those lotus feet.
All right.
I'm still thinking about the wax Mara. That's going to be fun. A Wisdom of the Sages table. All right, so we're going to read the Srimad Bhagavatam right now. Want to give us our maybe your thing will be you always say, okay, I'll always say we're going to start the Srimad Bhagavatam, dive into the nectar pot, and you always say where we're at.
Okay.
Because I never know every day, and that'll be just sort of like our regular banter.
Okay. So we are at Canto 3, Chapter 9, Lord Brahma's prayers for creative energy. And so now he's kind of like, part of his prayers is this kind of, in Sanskrit they call it Sambandagana. It means like, Jnana means knowledge, and Sambandha means in terms of the relationship or the connection, like who am I in relation to you? And Brahma's kind of laying that out here in some of these verses. Yesterday, he mentioned that Lord Vishnu is the prime root of the tree of the universe. And so he's kind of like, I recognize who you are, right? You're not an ordinary person. You're like the prime root of all existence, of the entire universe. And in these next two verses, today we'll read text 17 and 18. He's talking about one way that Lord Vishnu, or Krishna, as you could say, energy manifests in this world, and it's a very prominent way. And that is as the force of time, right? The time factor. Right? Wise philosophers, right, have seen, even Krishna says it in the Gita himself, right?
Seers.
Kalosmi. That
Kalashmi loksaya kri pravid ho.
yeah. Meaning?
Like that? Time I am.
Yeah,
the great destroyer of all the worlds. And I've
Yeah.
come to destroy all people.
Okay, nice. But yeah, he's the factor of time. The time, most of us just like move through life just kind of accepting it as it is and just trying to like squeeze whatever enjoyment that we can out of it. But the wiser people, the sages, they look at the world and they say there's an element here that's really quite difficult, really kind of messing things up, that's really quite unnatural. And that is the force of time. And they understand that where that force is coming from. So that's going to be spoken about here. Text 17.
It's also one of those things with time. It's sort of like people are always saying like, man, I can't believe I'm 40 or I can't believe I'm 50 or time flies. It's like it is an actual type of illusion. It's an extension. I mean, of course, Krishna is everything, but it's an extension of Maya, this kala. And therefore, we can notice how time has fooled us, and it actually feels a little unnatural. Do you remember you're 55 this year, so am I. We're the same age. That means our parents were walking around pregnant at the same time. Isn't that crazy?
Oh my God.
Not both our moms. No, it's cool.
Nowadays they say men are pregnant, or two. They say we're pregnant. No,
they say that?
Yeah, they changed it, right? People say
I don't know.
We're pregnant.
You live in New York City. They're upgrading words
I
there
know.
all the time.
Was
We're
like,
still talking about breeding sheep here.
Yeah.
But the thing, what was my point? I had a
Your
good
point is that
here.
our mothers were both pregnant at the same
Do
time.
you remember when we were little and you said, yeah, that guy, my friend's father, he's 55. We're like, oh man, that's pretty. Now we're that old man. We're that old man.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems unnatural. But some of you guys are like, yeah, you guys are old. And some of you guys are older. But you know what? That we feel normal. We don't feel old, right? It's just our bodies. Kathy Haggerty's like, yeah, we're old. Me and Kathy were the elders of the pilgrimage. But it's an illusion because we are not of this time factor.
And at the same time, for the body, it's real. It's very real.
For the body, it's so damn real.
Yeah.
I'm falling apart over here.
All right.
Okay. Let me go wax Raghunath. Okay, Prabhu. Starting with 17. People in general all engage in foolish acts, not in the really beneficial activities enunciated directly by you for their guidance. As long as their tendency for foolish work remains powerful, all their plans in the struggle for existence will be cut to pieces. Ooh. I therefore offer my obeisances unto him who acts as eternal time. People in general all engage in foolish acts. Yeah. What's that?
No, go ahead. I was going to say, go ahead and read text 18, or if you want to speak on this verse, you can.
No, it's okay. I'll read it. I mean, that's a headful. Your lordship, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who are I love this word, indefatigable. You are
indefatigable time.
You are indefatigable time and the enjoyer of all sacrifices. Although I'm situated in an abode which will continue to exist for a time duration of 2 paradas. 2 parada. That's a time. Isn't it interesting? They have all these interesting measurements that we don't have. A parada. Yeah. Do you know what that is?
Well, it's obviously half of Brahma's lifetime, right? So it's a very, very, very long time.
Yeah, 2 paradas. Although I am the leader of all other planets in the universe, and although I have undergone many, many years of penance for self-realization, still I offer my respect to you. So as great as Brahma is, he's realizing his insignificance.
That's the point there. Let's take a look at the commentary to text 17.
Sure.
Prabhupada writes, people in general are all engaged in senseless work. It's kind of like a little blunt, excuse me. Right? But when you look at it, it just makes sense, right? In other words, generally people are identifying with the body and trying to satisfy the body as the goal of life. And what it means and what's being pointed out here is that you're investing in something that has a time clock ticking on it that's going to disappear when you could, what is that, like where there's that old saying about, building your house on sand, right? Rather than building on a solid
Yeah,
foundation.
sandcastles.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like if someone were to walk up to a person that was building a house on sand where you knew that it was going to get washed away, but how much money does it take to invest in building a house, right? How much time, how much energy? You could say that is senseless work, right? It's like, or foolish, right? That's what the people in general are all engaged in foolish acts. Well, how can you say such like sounds very condescending, right? But if you're building your entire existence on something that is passing by very quickly, like you were saying, like we're 55, it happens so quick,
Yeah.
that's actually foolish. That there's if you know that there's an alternative, or have you even examined, is there an alternative? Right. So people in general are always engaged in senseless work. They're systematically unmindful of the real beneficial work, which is the devotional service of the Lord, technically called the Archana regulations. The Archana regulations are directly instructed by the Lord in the Narada Pancharatra and are strictly followed by the intelligent persons who know well that the highest perfectional goal of life is to reach Lord Vishnu, who is the root of the tree. That was what was mentioned in the previous verse. It was the root of the tree called the cosmic manifestation. So it's saying it's just like a leaf. Would it be foolish if a leaf thought, I could be happy if I disconnect from the tree? Right?
Silly.
Would that be foolish, Raghu?
Silly.
Okay. And so
There's no
it's saying
return on investments. There's no return on investment, right? We have to invest in our spiritual life, our spiritual self.
Right.
Big payoff.
So that happens in connection to that root. So he says, also in the Bhagavatam and in Bhagavad Gita, such regulative activities are mentioned. Foolish people do not know that their self-interest is in realization of Vishnu. Now next, what Prabhupada does is he quotes 3 verses. And these verses, they're so amazing. Like they come in a chapter that's completely amazing. And this is like the 5th chapter of the 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, which is in that chapter, an incredible sage is asked 4 questions and gives 4 incredible answers. You know who the sage is?
Prahlad.
Little boy, right? Little Prahlad.
The little boy sage.
Little boy sage.
Prahlad,
How old was he?
I was just reading that canto yesterday. It's incredible stuff.
Yeah.
Let's dip into it. Let's dip into it.
The answers that he gives in that chapter are so relevant to everything that we're going through today. This is just one of the answers, these 3 verses. And maybe what we can do is look at the chapter and see what the question was and all that. So here's the translations of the 3 verses Prabhupada quotes right now. Persons who are determined to totally rot in false material happiness. This is a 5-year-old kid speaking, right? They cannot become Krishna-minded either by instructions from teachers, by self-realization, or by parliamentary discussions. They are dragged by the unbridled senses into the darkest regions of ignorance, and thus they madly engage in what is called, and this is so important to think about it and meditate on, they madly engage in what is called chewing the chewed. Right?
Chewing the chewed. Isn't that a great analogy?
It's so good,
it's like
right?
Here's this perfect thing. If you have little children, you know this. A little child will take a piece of gum, chew the gum, it'll have no flavor. Take the gum out of their mouth and go, Dad, you want this? After they've chewed it, there's no flavor in the gum any longer. They say that material life is like chewing that which has already been chewed. It's exciting at first, and then all of a sudden it's like boring.
Time factor.
That's material, right?
Time factor.
Yeah, whatever it is, whatever exciting thing you can think. We're going to go to the Amalfi Coast for all the Italians out there. We're going to go to the Amalfi Coast. We're thinking something exciting plan. Imagine saying, okay, you're going to go to the Amalfi Coast. You're going to stay there for a month. 6 days, you'll be like, I'm bored. Let's get the hell out of the mouthy coast. And no matter where you go, it's just like you sort of, you want something, you need, the soul needs some type of engagement. You can't just like sit around. It's chewing that which has been chewed, Kaustubha.
Yeah, you know, we engage in activities that we think are going to give us happiness. At first, they give us a little thrill, and then we keep trying. We can't let go. We're thinking that there's more flavor in it. I got to find that flavor, and we're just growing older and older and older, and we're missing out on the most important aspects of life. So,
another. Sorry, cut you
No
off.
problem.
Another way you can take chewing the chewed as material life gets to this point where you get a burst, like starburst gum, chewing the gum, keeping the gum analogy going. You chew, you get that burst of freshness and sweet, and all of a sudden it gets stale. So then you got to take it up a notch the next time, isn't it? Like Bhakti Grant. If you missed yesterday's walk on Wednesday, Bhakti Grant, he was so good, wasn't he? He's such a clear speaker. I really enjoyed listening to him, and he was very vulnerable. Check out yesterday's walk on Wednesday. But he was telling, like, he was taking these hallucinogens, and he get some high from them. But then he kept on whatever, taking more and more. It wasn't enough anymore, so he had to take more, and then more, and then more. And that's material life. Our senses get satiated. The thrill is over. How can I turn up this, Maya another notch more to get that same thrill? So I got to have 3 drinks, and now 4 drinks, now 5 drinks. So I got to take 2 hits or 3 hits of this drug, and it never ends. And we have to keep trying to. And next thing you know, we're in a very, very dark place, quick, and down a deep well, and we can't get out. That's dangerous.
Prahlad talks about that well, actually.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Carry on, my wayward son.
He says, because of their foolish activities, they are unaware of the ultimate goal of human life, that the ultimate goal of human life is to achieve Vishnu, the Lord of the cosmic manifestation. And so their struggle for existence is in the wrong direction of material civilization, which is under the external energy. They are led by similar foolish persons, just as one blind man leads another blind man, and both fall into the ditch. Such foolish men cannot be attracted towards the activities of the Supreme Powerful, who is actually the neutralizing measure for their foolish activities, unless and until they have the good sense to be guided by the great souls who are completely freed from material attachment. There's the remedy. So anyway, this all comes, like, just to give very briefly, share the story. The 7th canto of the Bhagavatam, a large part of it has to do with this boy sage, Prahlad, who was born into the family of the Asuras, or the demons, right? His father was like #1 universal
demon.
Yeah, enemy #1, right? He was just like the epitome of materialism, right? Conceit.
Like America's most wanted demon.
Yeah, the universe's most wanted. He was like just absolutely brutal controller, right? And just the most like dark, in deep dark illusion. And he has this son, but the son, even in the womb, he heard from the sage Narada. Right?
Pregnant people out there, careful what you hear.
Okay.
Hear the Bhagavatam. Take your pregnant body to Kirtan.
Take your pregnant body to Kirtan.
Take you and your pregnant body and get to Kirtan.
Yes.
Changes the kid. Changed Prahlad. Prahlad came out liberated just from hearing in the womb.
So what happened was, so he got that training in the womb, but when he was just a boy, his father sent him off to school. And he was meant to be trained in materialistic thought. He was meant to just like kind of follow in that, the family business in a sense, right? Like
the family, yeah.
Right. It's like our whole thing is material enjoyment. We reject any conception of this root of the universe and all that. We're not interested in trying to reconnect in your fantasy.
Right.
Right. We want to squeeze all the enjoyment out of material life, and if you get in our way, we see you as our enemy, and we conquer you. That's kind of what he was about. It's kind of the fundamental materialistic thought. And so what happens in this chapter is 4 times what Prahlad, the boy, is asked questions. The first time by his father. He's basically like, let me know, I've sent you to school now to get all trained up. Share with me, like, what have you learned today? Right? And what's the answer?
Yeah, like a father, like a father says, "Come sit in my lap. What did you learn in school today?"
Yeah.
Oh, what did he learn? I can't remember.
He says, his answer was, any person who's accepted a temporary body and temporary household life is certainly embarrassed by anxiety because of having fallen into a dark well where there is no
Check.
water but only suffering. One should give up this position and go to the forest, right? In other words, if you accept your temporary body as the self and you accept your material activities as the all in all, now you're in a dark well. And you're better off turning around right now and walking out to the forest and cultivating self-realization.
But by the way, I think people need to understand the Indian concept of a well. Because in America, when you think of a well, we think of a European well that's stone, like it looks like a beautiful round stone wall, and then there's a bucket that goes down. That's quite charming. Not like that in India. In India, they just you won't want to fall, but you're not going to fall down a well, right? Because you're going to hit the stone wall. But in India, they dig these wells, and then they get dry, and then they get covered over by grass because things just grow. And so you can be, and I know a guy who did this. It's just a true story. You just walk and all of a sudden you just drop. And you can imagine there's no water in the well. So you break your legs and you're at the bottom of the well and nobody's around. So this is the analogy they give for being too comfortable in material existence. By the way, if you're listening there on Zoom and you're feeling comfortable today, you might be in the well. Be careful. Right?
Okay.
You're like, yeah, things are going great today. Oh, no, I'm sorry. That means you're comfortable in the well. Yeah, so we have to keep at the forefront of our mind the temporality of existence so we don't get lazy in our effort of self-realization, or else we're in the dark well.
All right.
Do you know that? Do you know anybody who fell in a well? Do you know that
No.
devotee Gita,
I mean, not literally.
Gita Nagri Das? Do you know Gita Nagri Das?
Oh, that's how he got hurt.
He fell in the well.
I remember him walking around on crutches all the time.
That is because he fell in the well.
Wow.
These are real analogies Prabhupada gives.
Amazing. Well, Bhagavatam gives, yeah. Prahlad gave.
Yeah.
So after he gave this answer, his father's like, oh, that's funny. The little boy, someone like kind of contaminated his thinking here. But he's just
like sometimes kids say stuff, and you're like, where'd you hear that from?
Yeah, exactly. Where'd you hear that from? So that's what happens is he tells the teacher. Now the teachers are terrified of him because he's like this tyrant, right? And he tells the teachers, let's be a little careful now, and let's get to the bottom of where he heard this, and let's correct this. So now these teachers, they're terrified for their lives, basically, and they're talking to little Prahlad, and they ask him this question. They say, where did this polluted intelligence of yours come from? Is it just did you hear it from our enemies? Right, because the Suras, they see the Suras or the Devas as their enemies. They're absorbed in that consciousness. That's where Hiranyakashipu is at. It's like life is a competition for the material resources, and anyone who's standing in the way of us, consuming those resources is our enemy. So they asked him, did our enemies sneak in here and give you this information? Is that where you got it? And Prahlad's answer is super profound, and it really it speaks right to the essence of what that once you identify with the material body, that first illusion leads to the second illusion. I see in terms of friends and enemies, and really in this
that's
whole
the big one,
right? Yeah, this whole chapter is really about Prahlad's refusal to see on the bodily level, to see in terms of friends and enemies. So when he's asked this by these teachers, did our enemies sneak in here, and are they the ones that kind of like corrupted your thinking? This is his answer. He says, he immediately just says, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose external energy, right, his deluding energy, has created the distinctions of my friend and my enemy by diluting the intelligence of men. Indeed, I am now actually experiencing this, although I have previously heard of it from authoritative sources. So he's like, I'm 5 years old, and when I was in the womb of my mother, I heard Bhagavatam from Narada. And, he spoke about this kind of conception of having friends, seeing people as friends and enemies, that were not all of the same energy, that we're not all brothers and sisters. I heard about that, and now I'm actually witnessing it from you too. He didn't even directly answer the question. He just started praying. I offer my obeisance unto Krishna. It's only by his power that people are deluded in this way. Then he goes on. He says, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead is pleased with the living entity because of their devotional service, one becomes a pundit, and does not make distinctions between enemies, friends, and themselves. Intelligently, they then think, every one of us is an eternal servant of God, and therefore we are not different from one another. Persons who always think in terms of enemy and friend are unable to ascertain the supersoul within themselves. They can't find God within themselves. Not to speak of them, even such exalted persons as Lord Brahma, who are fully conversant with the Vedic literature, are sometimes bewildered in following the principles of devotional service. The same Supreme Personality of Godhead who has created this situation has certainly given me the intelligence to take the side of your so-called enemy. O teachers, as iron attracted by a magnetic stone moves automatically towards the magnet, my consciousness, having been changed by his will, is attracted by Lord Vishnu, who carries a disc in his hand. Thus, I have no independence. And that's a very powerful analogy, the magnet one. He's saying that by nature we're attracted. The very word Krishna means the attractor. But why are we not attracted? It's just like if you take sometimes magnets become old and rusty and they lose their magnetic pull. But if you can kind of shave it down, it kind of restores it.
Yeah.
Filing down. You did this in your science class when you were a kid, Raghu? Fool around with that?
Oh yeah, all the time. I still do it.
Okay.
Regularly. Shaving down magnets, don't you, Mary?
I know you're into that kind of stuff. You're like a Boy Scout and that kind of thing, right?
I was.
With your ELO belt buckle.
Neckerchief. Neckerchief.
Neckerchief. Okay. And so
the Boy Scouts are laughing. Everybody else is like, what are you talking about? It's a neckerchief. It's like a made up word. Yeah, maybe, but we wore them.
So
anyway, it's a good. It seems like, Kaustubh, like the idea of friend and enemy is completely based on material envy. To have an enemy, it means this person it's based on my ego. This person is not respecting me, and therefore they must be against me. And I sum up everybody according to what they do to my ego. If they don't stroke my ego, they're my enemy. And if they stroke my ego, I'm going to let them in. They're my friend. And once you get over the ego conception of self, then that starts to melt away.
Yeah, this idea of seeing in terms of friends and enemies is completely antagonistic to yoga, right? Whatever that yoga may be. In the sixth chapter of the Gita, when Krishna lays out the Ashtanga yoga path, he begins by saying, to see this way, to be one of these yogis, this is the way you need to think. You need to see stones and gold as the same, right? Like, in other words, wealth doesn't affect your consciousness. But then he says something even more. He says, but even more so, you have to go deeper. And you have to be able to see people that your friends, those that wish you well, and your so-called enemies, those that wish you harm. You have to see them equally, right? Samadarshana.
It's a tall order we're asking from everybody here. People that want to cause you harm, you got to see them as your friends.
Yeah. And it's saying, because with this vision, you're seeing underneath it all, I know that we're all the same, that we're all of the same energy, but we get bewildered. right? And we're competing with one another, and we're fighting with one another. So to perform Ashtanga yoga, where you have to settle your mind, make it very peaceful, keep it entirely focused on one, object, you can't have a mind that's full of the anxieties and the tensions and the hatred that comes from seeing in terms of friends and enemies. You have to become free of that.
If I'm carrying,
Yeah.
go.
And here we have Prahlad saying he's a bhakti yogi, right? He's a devotee of Lord Vishnu. He's got that love in his heart. And he's saying, because of that, my attraction for Krishna is like automatic. It's like a magnet, right? When we have that seeing in terms of friends and enemies, that materialistic thought, it's like that rust on the iron. It won't be attracted. But when we're free of that, and that's really what the process of bhakti is kind of freeing whatever is external to my true consciousness, whatever is corrupting the purity of my spiritual, thought, my spiritual thinking. That has to be step by step. It has to be purified, and then naturally, one's attracted. Krishna is the attractor. So, having said, having heard all this, yeah. Go ahead. You want to say something?
I was thinking like, I had something good and then I forgot. Now it's back.
Okay.
Here's what I'm thinking. If you have an enemy in your life, if there's one person really driving you nuts, you can see Lord Vishnu has put this person in your life for your purification. We shouldn't see them as an enemy. You should see them, this is Lord Vishnu's gift to me, because I still have this antiquated, unhealthy desire to have an enemy.
Right.
And I'm not seeing it correctly. It's wrong vision. It's bad goggles, broken goggles. This person is sent for me to purify my heart. Because if I'm really transcendentalist, there is no enemy. Even the person, even you don't like how they're acting, you have some deeper love for them anyway, because they're pure spirit souls underneath their activities, even underneath their present activities.
The way that this manifests, when you meet a character, we're talking about Pankajangri Prabhu, the Pujari who passed away. And you could see that there was the nature of a person like that, right? When you really meet someone like that, no friends. I mean, like no enemy. In other words, not seeing in terms of friends. Everyone is a friend, but I don't see in terms of that this person could be my enemy, even if they're antagonistic. There's no drop of anger or animosity in that. That's the mind of the yogi, right? That's the purity of the yogi. So Prahlad here, he said that if you can reconnect with that root of existence, you become a pundit. You don't make distinctions between friends and enemies. You have that pure mind. That pure mind is just completely ripe for that transformation that you were talking about in your lyrics, right? For that metamorphosis. But those that see in terms of friends and enemies, he says they're unable to ascertain the super soul within themselves. They can't recognize God within themselves. They can't recognize God within another. When you can recognize the Paramatma within yourself and within others, there's no questions of friends and enemies, because it's like we're all coming from that. We all have that same connection to Paramatma.
There's that statement too, sort of, if a person is hateful, there's some self-hate going on as well. They're not really respecting themselves as a spiritual being.
Yeah.
A lot of their hate is their own. They hate what they are, and so therefore they're projecting it outwards.
Right. It's that inner hate being projected outwards. Yeah. So having heard all this, or those teachers heard this and they were kind of like, this is going to be a tough case. Like this kid seems to be pretty indoctrinated into this, spiritual type of thinking. But then they worked on him and they were hoping that over the course of time he had let that go. And then again, the same thing happened where Hiranyakashipu, the demonic father, brought little Prahlad on his lap, right?
Came home for Christmas break from boarding school.
Yeah. And he's sitting on the lap of the father. And the father again says, this is what he said, for so much time you've heard many things from your teachers now. Now please repeat to me whatever you think is the best of that knowledge. And his answer was this really important series of verses. that begins Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smarnam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanavedam. That he talks about the 9 processes for performing Bhakti Yoga. Shravanam, hearing the sacred text. Kirtanam, chanting the names of God. Smarnam, meditating meditating on the pastimes of Krishna, etc., etc., etc. He didn't like that answer.
No, that wasn't the answer he was looking for. It was like,
So he becomes furious. And then he asks the same question again. He says, you rascal, you are the most fallen in our family. If you have not received this education from your teachers, because the teachers are like, this was not us, right? Please,
we swear we didn't do it.
it had nothing to do with us. We don't know where he's getting this from. It is definitely not us. And so then Hiranyakashipu says to little Prahlad, he says, you're the most fallen in our family. If you haven't received this education from your teachers, then where have you gotten it? And then Prahlad says the 3 verses that we just heard, where he speaks about how people are chewing the chewed. Materialistic people, they're too addicted to materialistic life, and they're just acting so foolishly. He's talking about his father, right? In a gentle way, he's speaking indirectly, but you're chewing the chewed, and now you're confused. You're strongly entrapped by the consciousness of enjoying material life, and therefore you have and people they accept as their leader or guru or some blind man attached to external sense objects. They can't understand what the goal of life is. They're falling into the ditch, and then that verse, and this is such a powerful. Prabhupada translated it different. In the verse we read today, he said, such foolish men cannot be attracted towards the activities of the Supreme Powerful, who is actually the neutralizing measure for all their foolish activities, unless and until they have the good sense to be guided by the great souls who are completely freed from material attachments. So it's almost like he's compassionately reaching out to his father and saying, I can see, look how angry you are right now for no reason, right? You're so concerned. Your material, even though you're in this number 1 position, you're still full of frustration and full of anger and confusion. You just need to find someone that can see clearly and take shelter of them, And so therefore he quotes that verse. Those are the words that convinced that put his life at risk, right? Those are the words when he spoke those words. Hiranyakashipu said, kill him, right?
Kill him.
You're speaking truth to power. So clear.
Yeah.
Right? So this chapter, to me, when I look back at it, it's like there's one main message. There's one clear message
Chapter,
that comes through.
Part, wait a second. Chapter of where we're at, or where of the
Canto
Hiranyakashipu story?
Canto
Okay.
7, Chapter 5, which is 4 questions are placed to Prahlad. And each time, under the pressure that he's under, he's got
And he's
this,
5. And he's 5 years old.
He's 5 years old. Very innocent, but obviously, super intelligent. And he was trying, the material influences in his life were trying they're trying to influence his consciousness in such a way where he saw others as enemies. Is this not what politicians do to us, right? Is it not what, friends do, so-called friends do to us, just everywhere we look, you flip on the news, you hear from different voices, and they're trying to identify your enemy. This country is creating a problem. This race of people is creating a problem. These are your enemies. They are different from you. And until that situation is corrected, I will be in a state of fear or a state of anger. And it's that state of consciousness which is impossible to have a clear mind, a yogic mind, a peaceful mind, a happy mind. And so Prahlad got that. And the whole thing is he's trying to be influenced towards seeing in terms of friends and enemies. And he's like, I cannot even relate to what you're saying to me. What you're saying to me seems to have no basis in reality. And actually, I feel sorry for you, and I see how it's leading to your suffering. And I suggest that you find a source of true information and you connect with that person and learn from them.
Giving you the nod, the no nod, but it really means yes.
Okay. All right. So with that nod,
It was beautiful.
shall we
Mara.
to
Let's go to let's turn to Mara. Wax Mara. Wax Mara, what do you got for us today?
All right. Bhagavatam is your future. Don't build your.
First of all, Mara, have you accepted that you're going to be at the Wisdom of the Sages table? Are you good? Are you good with that?
Yeah.
A meet and greet with Mara.
I'm good with that.
You need a cookbook. You need a cookbook.
All my
Wisdom of
recipes
the
are
Sages
stolen.
That's
They're
what every
stolen, you said?
cook does.
Yeah.
They just
Every cookbook is
tweak it a
stolen.
little.
You change one
true.
ingredient, and then you write your name on it. Wisdom of the Sages cookbook.
All right.
Okay, let's go. Let's see.
Don't build your house on sand.
Yeah, that's from the Bible, by the way.
Material life is like chewing used chewing gum.
Chewing the chewed.
Yeah. If you're comfortable, you might be at the bottom of a well.
Okay.
Ooh, likey.
Cultivate a pure mind to see clearly. See gold and stone, friends and enemies as the same.
There you go. That's the big one today.
Yeah. And then having an enemy in your life is Lord Vishnu's gift to purify the heart.
Okay.
So that's what I got.
Huh.
And Michelle Berger is teaching an asana class for Patreon members at 6:30 a.m. And there's a Bhakti Recovery Group meeting today at noon.
We love Michelle Berger, and we love Bhakti Recovery Group. Thanks, everybody. Another day in the books of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we're looking forward to seeing some of you guys out there this Saturday at the Bhakti Center. It's going to be fun and enlightening, and also Wisdom of the Sages Retreat. We're excited about that. First 2 weeks of June. What a way to start the summer. Doing all this same stuff we're doing in person, like they're real people. Yeah, you're going to be surprised how short I actually am. You're going to be like, wait a second, I thought you were massive. You're tiny. Yeah, I'm going to hear you. I'm going to look at your face. I did that. We did that Wisdom of the Sages retreat last year, and people were showing up and looking at their face. I was like, wow, you look different. You look slightly different than you do on Zoom. Well, anyway, we are here and we're blissful. Look at Justin. Justin is in great bliss right here. He's just sitting there chanting japa, dancing. I got to get this guy on a walk on Wednesday. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. It's going to be a beautiful day today. I'm convinced of that.